welcome into another episode of the Counterculture Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, along with my great friend and co-host, Taylor. And we are joined by two excellent gentlemen tonight. I'm very, very excited, mostly because we've had a lot of ladies on our show, right? And we need to get the testosterone levels up.
I think we've only had two other male guests.
I think so,
Yeah.
right? So why not just have two on at the same time, right? Where we double the guests, right? So, but first, I just want to let you guys introduce yourselves, to share with you guys, about y'all's YouTube channel, right? Caz TV, and just a little bit about yourselves real quick.
So Christian and Zach we came up with the acronym Caz TV because he's Christian, I'm Zach. When we were in college, we used to have people tell us all the time, man, you guys need to have some sort of show or something you guys do, like skits and things like that. Yeah. And, we've always looked for a good laugh to keep people entertained and things like that. So that's kind of how the page started on TikTok. And then Instagram, and we had a couple of videos that went big, and then kind of trying to figure out where we're going with it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Like you said, we came up with the name Christian and Zach. We've been trying to do this Caz TV thing for how long, Zach? Probably like a year, maybe?
Yeah, probably a year.
Yeah, like a year. We've had a couple of guests on. And we're just trying to talk about things as far as like relationships and the culture in a Christian perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like our main thing. Just shedding light on that from a Christian perspective.
Okay, dope, awesome. So I guess, did you guys go to college together? Is that how you guys became friends?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we were actually teammates. There's another guy that he's on our show a lot. His name's Chris King. And all three of us were teammates in college.
Okay.
And so we'd work out together. It was really us three. We had a Bible study we went to together. We had, we kind of did everything together, really.
Okay.
And there are a couple other guys that they don't really have Instagram or social media, but if they did, man, our lives would be live. Like really live. If they joined too, it would be like a whole nother level.
So it would be the biggest channel on YouTube.
Maybe it would be up there.
Yeah. Nice, awesome. So I've seen like a lot of the like TikToks and stuff you guys do, which are really funny, right? For you guys listening, like if you love a good not even parody, but like a page that does skits and things like that, right? Their Instagram and TikTok account is quite funny, right? You guys actually do some really good stuff. But I'm really curious. So, because the biggest thing I love that, like you had said, Christian, is that you guys kind of go from a Christian perspective, right? With how we view things. And when we look at today culturally, being a devout and outspoken Christian is like the most rebellious thing you can like be nowadays, which is very strange, right? And so what I love actually from both you guys is like just sharing, I guess, y'all's faith journey. Did y'all always grow up in a church environment? Was it something that kind of happened as you've become, a man? Like what was the journey for you guys? And either one can go.
I'll let you go first.
All right. So for me, I grew up in a Catholic home. Well, actually, my mom was Catholic and my dad was like Baptist, right? Mm-hmm. But predominantly, I grew up in the Catholic church. Went through the whole Bible school process, got confirmed, that whole thing. And I went off to college, and this is before I met Zach and some other people. And I had a course in one of my English classes, and he actually made us read a story from the Bible. So up to this point, I've kind of been like going through the motions, because your parents are making you go to church or what have you. So it was kind of like, tradition. Just I'm gonna go. I'm not really learning anything. I know the basics. Jesus died on the cross. You know what I mean? I know that.
Yeah.
But as far as like that, just knowing God for myself, I wasn't really there. And so I go to college. The professor, he makes us read a chapter out of the Bible. I forget what chapter it was, but it sparked my interest, right? And so I was like, man, this is pretty interesting. Like this whole thing, I've been like kind of like just going through the motions by it my whole life, is actually pretty interesting to read.
Yeah.
And so I started diving in a little bit deeper, right? And then by this time, my mind is getting real curious. And so like a year later, I want to say Zach comes in the picture. And then it's like God placed like the right people at the right time to help me go from like this, from here to like here, right?
Yeah.
Because when he comes in, he brings a whole nother element. He gets me started up with like, Bible study. Like it was my first time doing actual Bible study when I met him. Like he said earlier, we had a group that we would meet up, like on Tuesdays or something. And then from there, we'd meet up like Mondays, we'd have something. Tuesdays, we'd have something. Wednesday, we'd do something. Thursday, it was like every day of the week we had something going.
Yeah.
And so that little small, intimate Bible study that we had between like 2 or 3 people grew a little bit. And from there, it just kind of elevated what I know about this whole Christian faith and this Christian journey.
Okay, nice.
And
what about you, Zach?
I also grew up in a Catholic, going to Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. I mean, through senior year of high school. And, my parents, we went to Catholic church, but they weren't, they were believers who happened to be Catholic, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like they weren't dogmatic Catholics where they believe every idea that is kind of proposed by the church, if it's not biblical, if that makes sense. So, kind of grew up, sometimes we'd go to, on rare occasions, we'd go to like a non-denominational church. My mom was like some sort of Baptist, it was like some sect of Baptist, like, what was it? Man, I forgot the name of it. Maybe it was like Historic Baptist or something. The name of it sounded old.
Yeah.
And primitive Baptist. That's what it was.
Primitive.
Yeah. Like they're beating on like bones and stuff, like fossils and things like that.
Are you really serious?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I think it was just like, it had something to do with the way they sang was different. Their music style was different. But so, came from a background where my parents both were not necessarily raised in a Catholic environment. They were raised in a Christian environment. And then we happened to go to Catholic school and Catholic church. And so I kind of went through the whole thing that he went through. When I got to college, it was still important to me. So I'd still go to church and things like that, but I never really fully read the Bible. And my faith started growing when I got to college. We'll probably dive a little deeper later because I don't want to take up this whole part just talking about me. But when I got to college, it became more my own faith. And then started out at a university, played football at Troy University. And then I transferred to a junior college up in New York for a semester to try to get a scholarship because I was a walk-on at Troy. Played there for a semester, then got a scholarship to Henderson State. That's when I transferred to where I met C. Love and Chris King. And from there, found a group of guys to connect with. Another pivotal part of my story. When I was at Troy, there was a guy that I was kind of like close, like I'm close to C. Love and Chris with at Troy, and we would do Bible studies together. His name's Hafiz. And he started his own podcast called The Roommates. And I think they were actually he lived in Houston for a while, actually.
Don't we all?
And so, yeah. Yeah. So he was really influential in introducing me to like a lot of the, like the different sects of Christianity, different denominations. And then also kind of like, he's naturally a debater. I don't know if you're familiar with any of like the red pill blue pill stuff. But he recently had like a debate with somebody, and he's naturally a debater. And so when he became a Christian, he was kind of exposing all the different cults out there and stuff like that. And like, you know, different belief systems that go against Christianity and stuff that I had no idea about. There would be a lot of people that would almost kind of, intellectually bully a lot of the Christian students at the school. And then he became a Christian, and he'd walk around with his Bible like, I'm ready for whoever. You know, he would beat these guys in debates. Like, and so he kind of helped me grow in that area of my faith. And then, like I said, when I got to Henderson, we had a couple encounters with some groups, and some of that Hafiz stuff that he, you know, shared with me came out there, and it was pretty cool. And then all of them, C-Love, Chris, Hafiz, everyone, they all met each other at my wedding a year ago, a little over a year ago. And so, but yeah, my faith has kind of just grown over time. It started out as something my parents brought me up in, to now it's something that me and my wife are living out on our own.
Yeah, take ownership. Yeah. Okay. You know, one thing I think this would be good for some of the people listening. Do you guys think that you would be where you are now, right, in your faith journey, without the, as men, do you think you'd be where you are now without the group of men that you had, you know, at the time, and still do, right? The group of friends, do you think that you would be where you are now without that?
I know I wouldn't. And I always wondered why I went to this small school in Arkansas. Looking back, like, man, like, we won championships there. But the real reason I went there, when I look back, was just for that reason specifically, to learn about Christ and to dive into it more. Because I don't think if I went to another school, I don't think I would have had the same experience personally. I mean, you never know. God probably would have set it up, but I went to that school for a reason. And I feel like that was the primary reason, was to get around those group of guys and to explore and learn more about him.
Yeah, you know, since he says that, a lot of times I would look back in my life and I'm like, man, you know, if I would have known what I knew now in high school, I would have had a scholarship and all this. I would have gone to this school. But then when I think about it, I'm like, man, well, I have a lot of friends that I went to high school with and stuff, and or even people maybe I wasn't friends with, and their faith is like gone. They don't even believe in God anymore, or they don't even know anything about, you know, the church or how the Bible came to be or any of that stuff. Yeah. And so I definitely think the people that God put me around made a difference, to answer your question directly. Now, we could go down the rabbit hole here, and I'm not going to do it, but it's like, well, God would have made another way, you know, if I didn't meet them, you know, who knows? But I definitely think it was definitely a fundamental piece in where I am today, and spiritually.
Right. No, for sure. You know, and the reason I wanted to point that out, and again, I although yes, I may have knew that you guys were going to say that, I think it's important because I think people don't realize how important, especially I would say for men, how important it is to have a group of strong Christian men around you to help you in that journey, right? Because being a Christian is very difficult, right?
Especially
it's very
today.
hard. Yes, especially today. It's very hard. And without surrounding yourself with people that are willing to go on the journey with you, right? Ultimately, once you get married, obviously your spouse is one that helps you. But beyond that, right, you need a group of strong men that can help you, right, get on you know, in the right trajectory for yourself, right? Because especially nowadays, you know, when we look at ourselves culturally, there are so many different voices just talking to us what it means to be a man, right? And a lot of times it's very wrong.
What is a man?
Yeah, well, I mean, what is a woman, right? I don't know. Who knows, right? You know, and so, you know, to that point though, right, is these fundamental aspects of that gender identity, right, of what it means to be a man or what it means to be a woman, is being directly challenged. Now, for me, again, me being a spiritual person, I think the battle is on that spiritual realm, right? Because, you know, if we want to say the idea of we are made in the image and likeness of God, right, the greatest way to attack God, right, on earth is to attack the fundamental aspects of being a man and being a woman, right? You know, and so for you guys, you know, I think what's great about what you guys do is that you attack these things in a comedic sense, right? Through TikTok and different things, right? Yes, you make people laugh, but you're trying to kind of make a bigger point, right? You're trying to bring home an idea, right? Although it's funny, right? It's like, but there is a reality in that, right? And where there's a message we're trying to get through. So, you know, I guess for you guys, you know, is it just been, again, because I know you said, like you said, skits has been a big part of kind of what you guys do, right? So, you know, when you are going about it, do you have like an idea of like what your message is going to be, right? Or are you kind of like, I think this is funny, and so I'm just gonna, you know, it's gonna make people angry, but it's gonna make me laugh, so I'm just gonna do it anyway.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't care about people's feelings almost at all. If I'm saying the right thing, I don't care how it affects anybody. Zach is the one that usually has to check me, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't say this. You know what I mean? Maybe you should. Like, I don't really.
Yeah, we
care
all need that
all.
person.
Yeah. C-Love's over here is like, I don't care who's mad at the end of this, right? I'm making my point.
I don't care at all. I do not care. There's people in the comments saying stuff like, "Oh, Sky Daddy doesn't exist," and I'm like, okay, keep commenting. I just need.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just keep doing
going.
More and more.
Keep going.
And more.
It doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
The thing that I was thinking about when they said the skits and stuff was just the little video that you did with the wee sound, and how everyone. So there's this video. Let me see if I can pull it up. I don't even know if you'd be able to see it on here or not. But he made this. There was a sound. I'll try it. Should I try it or not? I mean,
yeah,
I don't
sure.
wanna,
Yeah, who cares? Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
Your platform. I don't want to make it look, weird or anything.
We're not real professionals
millions
here.
Of people.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, you guys. I think you guys will get there though.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're just two guys that like to talk and drink whiskey.
Yeah,
There's not much to it.
For sure.
Hey.
So let's see. Where is the one where you? Oh, here. Okay, I'm gonna take the headphones out for a second. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, we'll try.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me read the caption first. It says, "Unbelievers on a random afternoon watching Christians being taken up by the rapture." And it got 1,209 comments, and it's people like arguing, like being mad and stuff. And
That's the best kind of hype.
Yeah, it is the best.
And then so he decided to make another one right after that that said, same sound.
You can't see it though. You have to read it.
You can't see it? Yeah. Okay, so it said, "Seeing all the Christians flood the comment section and profess to defend their faith." And that one has over 100 comments. And people are commenting, "Wee!" and arguing. And then he did another one that hit like 700 comments. And it says, "Me watching non-Christians rush to the comment section to defend a worldview that allows them to stroll through life with no moral accountability." And people, the comments, like, and the whole time,
That's a good sound. That's cool.
the whole time was just the little wee. And it's like, man, people are really getting that upset about something that small. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Well, it's a clever video, though.
It is very clever. Well, I think they get upset because I think they know in
They're
their
so
heart
pressed.
of hearts.
Yeah.
Well, they're very depressed.
No,
yeah.
I said pressed.
Oh well, yeah. Oh okay.
They're probably depressed too.
They probably are depressed and taking anxiety pills and everything else. But I think they get so upset because in their heart of hearts, I think they know that we are, we're saying something that that is truthful, and they're living their lives in a way that directly contradicts that, and it's upsetting, but they don't know how to articulate that, and so it just turns into screeching. And again, they say Sky Daddy like they think it's an own, but it just makes them look stupid. Well, in my opinion. Yeah, because whenever I see someone says something like Sky Daddy, I'm like, you sound like you have no idea what you're talking about, because that's not how it works. But one thing, I guess that made me think of, though, is, as well as in today's culture, right? Like I was saying before, like being a Christian is just something that is not seen as popular in any way. And so there's I think an argument to be made, especially nowadays, it's getting pretty loud as far as when you look at culture, and faith and politics, right? And those things are kind of really starting to meld into each other. I would argue it's a good thing, because I don't think you can actually separate those things from each other. Like, I think it all affects itself. Like when people, you could say more left leaning, right, want to argue like church and politics should stay separate from each other. I think in reality, like, there's no way to do that, right? Because if you are someone who lives their life with Christian values, that's going to dictate how you interact on a political level, right? Amongst your community, your country, things like that. So, I guess for you guys, when it comes to that sphere, right? Because that's a sphere that we tackle a lot, like politics and things like that. Do you
Sometimes
think
more than we should?
Well, it's I don't know. It's
sometimes we're straight culture and values, and other times we're like, can you believe this happened? And it's just boom, boom, boom.
Well,
political.
it's just
we've gotten a healthy balance of it.
It's a crazy world, right? But I wanted to, I guess, get you guys' thoughts on it. Is like, as Christians, is it important for us to get involved, or how involved should we get when it comes to politics and things like that, right? Because again, for me, I think politics and culture go hand in hand, and Christians certainly need to participate in culture. But I mean, what is y'all's perspective on that? Like, getting again, when you especially get into the political realm.
You asked the right man. Go ahead, Zach. You asked the right man.
Well, I think it depends, because politics is a very broad term. If you're so involved with politics where you're like, man, we've got this city council thing is going on, and they're going to plant more bushes on this corner of this street, and I don't think that kind of stuff is a huge deal. But I definitely agree with you on like from the perspective of Christians should be aware. We can't live in the dark. We can't just put our head in the sand and say, oh, well, when all these bad things politically happen that we have a say in because we can vote here.
Right.
And then we just bury our head in the sand, well, Jesus is king. Jesus is king. Like, yeah, so-and-so got elected, but Jesus is still king. It's like, what are we doing? God's put us in a place where we literally get to choose who's in charge. And so I think the key is knowing what you are voting for. That's the key. And I think when you know what you're voting for, it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's a ton of, especially today, I don't think there's a ton of gray area. I think it's very straightforward. And, we actually made a video, Church and Politics, Should They Mix? And kind of went out in the street and asked people, what are your thoughts? Should church be involved in politics or not? And a lot of people's answers was no. Church shouldn't be involved in politics. Politics should stay out of the church. Because I asked, should politics be mentioned in church? They're like, no, it should be separate. And my thing was, I said, okay, well, back in the day, there were slave owners. They'd go to church and they'd hear a pastor or somebody say, hey, this is wrong. Shouldn't do that. And those people say, hey, get those politics out of my church. I come here for church, not politics.
Mm.
And I asked them, what about that situation? And they all said, well, I guess that's a little different.
It's like, well, I mean,
yeah. And it's like, well, it's different because you view it as objectively, morally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, like I said, I think it depends on the politics. I think it goes hand in hand. There's definitely a balance. Kind of had this debate with my dad and soon-to-be brother-in-law about politics and stuff like that. And they were just saying, hey, well, at the end of the day, you read Revelation, God, Jesus comes back and wins. Like, the battle's already won. So don't stress so much about it. But then I'm like, yeah, but seems like there's a lot of stuff we can do to like delay that maybe. I don't know. Like there's stuff we can do to at least say, hey, not while we're not in our generation. Like we know that the world's we know it's prophesied that's gonna happen. But my outlook is not while I'm here. Not because I'm worried about that or anything, but at least like our generation, we need to at least do our job and hold it down for a while. And then maybe after we're gone, those people drop the ball. But we can't do that. And again, I think that we've become too passive when it comes to that. Like I said, unless it's an issue with, a tree being planted, in front of a building or something. And I think there's two extremes. Christians either get too passive and don't do the research, especially, and I'll just say it, in the Black community. Like there is hardly, and for anyone who's listening, I'm half Black, so I get a pass here. All right.
He gets to say, he is privileged enough to say that. Okay.
I have privilege. So basically the sad reality is the majority of Black Americans are Christian. Majority of Black Americans' values line up with the Bible.
More traditional values.
Yeah. And
at least it used to.
No, I would say still the majority. I would say still the majority if you poll the majority of people. Unfortunately, every time election time comes around, I'm going to vote for this side. And I'll have conversations. I mean, we have friends, me and C-Love have friends. We have conversations with them like, hey, man, how can you vote for this when you're a hardcore believer? Where the line is drawn. How can you vote for someone when they support this? Well, how do you know they support it? We don't really know if they really support that. I think that's just something the other side says.
Well, you can see a video of them saying that that they support it.
I know, but like I said, the issue is, and I think that's what the one side kind of gets very gets a pass on, is they're kind of like, well, I know a lot of my voters have morals totally different than mine, but I know they're not really going to know the difference, and so I'm just going to still push this kind of, and it'll be okay. I'll give you an example. We were at when Obama was running against Mitt Romney, or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
We were at Henderson. You remember that, C-Love? And I remember we're at a table with some of our teammates, Black teammates from Mississippi. You know who I'm talking about, C-Love. They were talking about, they were talking about something about like gay marriage or something. Like, man, that gay, we don't need to be doing that gay here. And then someone, I think it was like Meta or somebody, was like, dude, the guy that you were just arguing for, like, pro-Obama and stuff, he's like for that stuff, right? Man, Obama ain't for that gay. Like, well, yeah, he is. He literally says that stuff. Like, look at what he's running on. Like, no, y'all are just making it up because he's Black and you don't want him to win. It's like, man, and so when you get a group of people like that, and you get it on both sides, but since we're talking about this topic in particular, it's like you get people voting against what they believe in. And then when the gay stuff happens or whatever the thing is happens, like, what happened? Why are we letting this happen? I bet it's Bush's fault. You know, that's what they used to say. Now it's Trump's fault. And it's like, man, no. And like, I'm not married to any particular political party, but I think right now, one side has gotten so extreme that it is hard for me to find anything that I agree with for them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I saw a video. It was, he said, what it's, if you're radicalized by the right, you eat red meat, you go to church, and you get married, right? That's a radicalized person on the right. If you're radicalized on the left, you cut off your genitalia, right, and claim to be the other sex, right? I mean, that's and that's the point I think that where we're at with today. And that's the one thing I just don't understand, because one of the biggest things that matter to me the most, it's my biggest issue is the issue of abortion, right? For myself personally, it's the most reprehensible thing and most evil thing imaginable that we do, right? And it is very clear, right, that the agenda, I'll say, at least in the beginning, right, for that in the United States was the extermination, right, of minorities. It's very clear, right? Margaret Sanger and the people at Planned Parenthood, that was their idea, was to get rid of anyone that was not who they thought was deserved to live, right? It was definitely eugenics agenda. And when you look at the realities of, and this is the only thing I ever talk to when I talk to especially whether it's Black friends or even friends that are minorities, right, that tend to be like that. I'm like, when you can see that they're intentionally trying to do this, right? I think, what is it, in New York, I think there are more Black babies that are aborted than are actually born, right? Yeah. This is like an atrocity, in my opinion. I would argue is worse, if not at least as terrible as slavery in the United States, right? And the continuing turning a blind eye to it is just insane. It blows my mind, because and number one, for any person losing their life is terrible, but for the seemingly targeted approach, right? Because I don't know about you, I've only ever seen a Planned Parenthood in a low income, right, or Black community, or college campus, right? It's one of the two, right? Like here in Houston, right, the biggest Planned Parenthood clinic there was, right, was in the 3rd ward, right, and next to also the University of Houston. Right? I don't think that was an accident. Like, I don't think that's that. I think that was very intentional,
Right.
And so, and that's the things that I talk about, right? Because if I'm gonna say I'm Christian, I believe every person, right, is made in the image and likeness of God and deserves to, no matter what their circumstances is, to have a chance at life. Right, that is the biggest issue of our time. I mean, and thankfully Roe was struck down, but it doesn't mean that those things go away. Right, there's still a battle to be fought for that. And so, I think that's exactly what you said. Like, Christians need to be willing to speak up in those terms, right? Because I think where we are now, where again you have that, or even the gender ideology stuff, which I think is for anyone that has a child, right, it's like the most frightening thing there is right now. Thankfully our kids are little, and and we don't have to worry about that right now. But I mean, there are children all over the United States right now that are being mutilated by psychopaths. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And people will ask, I think of kind of like the boomer Christians. They'll ask, like, how did we get here? Right? Is that kind of like you're saying, like, I don't understand how this happened. It's like, well, you didn't say anything. You just kind of just rolled over and just let it happen.
Right. You kind of you were naive to the fact that oh, come on, like, look at how nice Obama is, man. Like, he wouldn't push that kind of stuff. That's conspiracy theory talk. And I think the issue is this, and I'm not picking on Obama. He's just the most liberal president that I've had in my lifetime. But it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's more than just multiple people are at fault here. Okay. I remember when I was at Troy and Obama was running for president, and he won. I was dating a girl, kind of. Actually, it's funny. I was in a relationship, like a private relationship with this girl, whose parents actually disapproved of like interracial stuff, and the fact that I'm half black. They were like, she said, if they find out that we're dating, like they'll stop paying my tuition, they'll stop all this stuff.
No
like,
way!
They
Holy
won't,
cow!
Yeah, it still goes on.
From Alabama. This is yeah, we're a couple years behind in some of those things. But anyway, and from my understanding, her dad like helped out at church and stuff, like, and openly was like, hey, well, no, my daughter ain't dating someone else that, you know, she's dating a good old white boy. You know, like, and so
that's a quote, folks. That's a quote,
yeah,
verbatim.
A quote. So basically, I remember she said something to the effect of, well, you know, Obama's the Antichrist, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And this is before I really got into politics like that.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Like,
he's the Antichrist
statement. What do you mean?
Yeah, she's like, he's the Antichrist. I mean, look at it. Look at his name and where he's from. He's from Hawaii. You know, like an Antichrist comes from Hawaii. You know, and they're like, no.
I didn't read that in Revelations.
Yeah, and so I was already getting into the Bible at that time, like reading it, and I was like, that seems like a stretch. And so you have people like that, very conservative, that are pushing stuff like that, and then when a moderate person hears something like that, like, those people are crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because they are. But then you see that something happens to coincidentally line up. Like, oh, you know, you hear someone like, yeah, Obama's pushing this Marxist agenda or whatever. So you're one of those people. It goes through that filter of, oh, well, I heard someone say this already. And so you kind of ignore it. And I think that's what happens is the boomers, you know, they went through this phase of pastors saying, get that devil box out of your house, you know, and like talking about televisions, you know, and then they're like, you know, here come the loony Christians on politics, the world's ending again, and all this kind of stuff. And then so then they kind of ignore that, which they should ignore that, but then it gives the other side a pass to say, oh, well, they're ignoring it. They'll ignore this too.
Yeah.
So now I can say I'm really doing it, and they'll say, that was a chopped up bit. It didn't, you know, the internet, you can do that with the internet. And so now someone can literally say, you know, we are going to give hormones to kids to stop them from having puberty and stuff. And then you show it to someone in that generation, they're like, where'd you find that? And you're like, well, it's, he said it on their, go to their website. The internet? Yeah, you know, I don't get my information from the internet. And then you're like,
I read the New York Times, kid. And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. It's like, it's like, you know, the internet, they can change it. And it's like, okay, you know, I don't have time to explain all this.
That's not how it works, dude.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't know. And so they vote these things in, and they're like, you know, this is getting out of hand. I remember somebody, older man was like, older gentleman, he was like, man, you know, we had conversations about this before, and he was kind of like, you know, that's the internet. Yeah. And then he was like, my job is making me tell them whether I'm a he or a him. What are they talking about? This is crazy. And it's like, I've been saying this. It's like, it's just a phase, you know, it'll pass. And then now it's getting to a point now where it's like, no, this isn't a phase. Yeah. This is like the new norm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I've told people too, is because I've heard that as well. And it's like, you know, like, yeah, sure, maybe this is like bulimia or like anorexia, like different things have happened like generationally. But it's like, but the problem is like, you know, this one is not, you know, if a kid actually goes through with this, right, and their parents allow them to go through this, there's no like turning back. It's not like, oh, like a girl, you know,
you can't just change your mind.
Yeah, like in high school, like anorexia or like self-harm, you know, was something that kind of were trends that happened when people were dealing with anxiety or depression, things like that. It's like, well, here's the problem. Like they can heal from that, right? You know, if a young girl has her healthy, you know, breasts removed and things like, it's like, like there's no turning back, right?
Yeah.
But again, like you said, like they're like, well, how did this happen? It's like, well, dude, like we try to tell you and you wouldn't listen. So, but you know, but we, like I said, we can go down the rabbit hole of that kind of political spectrum forever. You know,
Yeah.
but this is something I actually really wanted to talk to you guys about. You know, because you kind of mentioned this before. It's kind of like the red pill movement. So you guys talk about like dating and relationships some as well. And you know, for a lot of when you hear different people, right, whether it's the popular guys, right, you know, people turn to like Fresh and Fit, right? Those guys are awesome, or even like the terrible, awful Andrew Tate, right, or just different areas, right? You know, I think for a lot of men, they feel like dating, they feel like marriage, is a waste of time, right? You know, and from a secular perspective, I get their point, you know, right? You know, what does a man get out of marriage? But what I'm curious about, like, for you guys talking about like sea love, you know, do you think it's important, or do you think men get anything out of marriage still? Like, do you think that that marriage is still an institution worth fighting for and men need to participate in?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I personally want to get married one day. Because here's the main reason why, right? I want kids. And so I'm not trying to have kids outside of a marriage. I don't want a baby mama. I'm not trying to have to pay like monthly like child support. Like I want my children to grow up with two parents in the household, with their father around, with their mother around, with the support of their grandparents and their aunts and uncles, right? Like I want that. I still think people act like today, like women in that community, that women have like no benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, pretty much they think the only benefit women have is sex in the red pill community.
Yes.
And I think women are more than that, right? So as far as that goes, there's still benefits. But yeah, I mean, that's my take on it.
Well, okay. So I think even as a secular person, there are benefits to marriage. Statistically, men who are married live longer than single men. Statistically, they make more money than single men, even if the wife doesn't work. Statistically, they are more likely to receive promotions from jobs. They're more likely to work more hours. They're more likely to go to doctor's appointments. They are more likely to get offered higher salaries for the same job. So on the surface, it sounds like, there's no benefits. And usually the people saying that are like the kid that, like he's like, oh, I just want to get married for sex, and he hasn't really thought through or looked at these studies. He's kind of just reiterated the same thing that Fresh and Fit said, or whatever, which their stuff is entertaining. I'm not saying, hey, they're, bad or anything. I don't know them, but I think there's benefits. I think, and then when you come from a biblical perspective, trying to piggyback off what C. Love said, God said it is not good for a man to be alone. And he didn't just give him a bunch of boys. He didn't say, oh, I'm going to give you some friends. He gave him a wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think there's benefits. I will say this though. I understand where a lot of these guys are coming from, because I had gone through all that stuff. And if you're familiar with the red pill community, you probably have heard of my friend Hafiz. I don't know if you have or not. He's been on Fresh and Fit. He's been with I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kevin Samuels.
I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit familiar with Kevin.
He's friends with Kevin Samuels. Yeah, they are hilarious. But me and him, like before the red pill stuff was going on, we were living it out. Like we were trying to figure out trial and error. Like, why is she not texting me back? I'm going to text again. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to show up at her work and tell her I love her. that doesn't work, you know? And so really had to figure it out. We didn't have videos of guys explaining this to us.
Yeah.
And so I think that I understand where these guys are coming from, because most times the guys that dive into that red pill stuff, they've been hurt.
Mm-hmm.
They just got over a breakup, and they Google like, hey, how to get over X or how to win X back. And then they come across a Fresh and Fit video.
Yeah.
Or
how to be
Andrew
more
Tate
confident
video.
or how to,
stand
up for yourself. And then they, these
Yeah,
are gullible, not gullible, but these are
Well, they're looking for solutions.
impressionable young men.
Well, they're looking for solutions to their problem, and typically statistically speaking, they don't have a dad in their home, so they don't have a guy that they can go to and immediately, or their dad is not really present, right?
Because I
mean,
or their dad is someone they don't want to be like.
Yeah,
absolutely, right.
Yeah.
So where do you go to? You skip the internet, right? I mean,
and that's where I think the church kind of dropped the ball.
Oh my God, yes.
I think that the only reason that Andrew Tate's and these other people come up is because they are filling the gap that the church is not.
100%.
They are teaching things that church will not teach. The church is supposed to be the beacon of light and truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jesus is the truth. We're the ones that have it. We're the ones that have the complete truth. We need to be teaching men and women the truth when it comes to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not the Disney fairy tale stuff.
Right.
And I think that if the church were doing that properly on a large scale, I'm not saying there aren't churches that don't. I think Pastor Mark Driscoll does a great job. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but if they were doing that properly and truthfully, I don't think that guys like Andrew Tate would have had such a big vacuum that his message resonated with.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think, absolutely.
I think one thing that the red pill gets right is letting women know what men want. Like it gives the man's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, women need to hear that most men don't want a woman who already has children. Most men don't want a woman who is obese, like very overweight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most women want a woman who looks good.
And now we're canceled. We're canceled forever. Oh my God.
The counterculture, fat phobic. Yeah. There we go.
But yeah, they do a good job of letting women know what men want. I don't think we get that really anywhere else but like the red pill community.
100%.
And you want to know, what's interesting is I think that the red pill community does a good job compared to what else we have, which is really nothing, explaining the differences between men and women.
Mm-hmm. Just acknowledging that there is a difference between men and women,
right?
Just as a base level, right?
Right.
You're asking,
but here's the thing: there are churches that do.
Yes.
Like I said, Pastor Mark Driscoll, great job, does a great job. He has this thing called Real Men Podcast or something like that, and it's amazing. It's like red pill with
Jesus,
none of the gaps missing.
Yeah,
because red pill has a lot of gaps. Here's the issue with red pill. The problem with red pill,
it's secular. At the end of the
secular,
day.
and it's deceiving, because just like feminism, where the message is, hey, we're just trying to, we're just looking for equality, and we're not against men. We're not against any of this stuff. Maybe the leaders think that, but feminism is such a vague term.
Yeah.
Who defines it?
Well,
some women will say
they can't even define it anymore anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in the same thing with red pill, especially something that came up with on the internet, and it's really not even supposed to be talking about dating. It's supposed to be like referencing the Matrix and all that stuff.
Yeah.
When you're talking about red pill and the red pill community, anytime you point something out, like, well, this guy said you can cheat on your wife and everything's fine. Well, he's not a real red pill. He's a black pill. It's like, okay, well, he says he's red pill. He's not. Okay, who's the real red pill? Rolo. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't give advice or anything. It's like, he has like the last chapter in his book is like the 10 rules of Rolo or something like that. That sounds like advice, And so I think the good is, like I said, me personally, my personal opinion, I think the good that the red pill does is it at least exposes the dangers and the lies that guys can get caught up in. We were just talking about a scenario with a guy that kind of getting screwed over by a girl and in a relationship, and the red pill talk stuff would have kind of helped prevent that, but imagine if the church could do it.
Yeah.
Imagine if the church, shared these things. And there's a guy, forgot his name, but he wrote a book called Love and Respect. And then there's another book, very interesting, both Christian men, His Needs, Her Needs. I would recommend it to anybody. It talks about the top 5 needs that a man wants and needs in a marriage, top 5 needs that a woman wants and needs in a marriage. And when you are not fulfilling those needs, the likelihood of adultery shoots through the roof. And so, but the unfortunate thing is these guys would go to churches and talk about the book, and there would be women that would say, it's so chauvinistic, and and it's like, it's just talking about how men and women are different.
Right.
We're just like just talking about the reality. And I think, is it Love and Respect by Dr. Emerson Edridge?
Yeah,
that what it is? Okay,
that's him.
Okay, that's the book, folks. In case you want to look at it.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah, and so no, absolutely, but I think C-Love has a good point. I think where the red pill goes very, is absolutely correct. Is just pointing out the realities, like when it comes to men and women. It's like, look, like, right, and this is where like Ali talks about the gynocentrism of our culture. It's like, and this is why you have
Ali,
like
who? Ali Drummond?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, she's, and you see it on TikTok, right? These, like when it's like, feminist gets owned or whatever, whether it's like, Pearl or whatever, right? Like you hear them say, like, you are so out of touch with reality. Like you don't even, like you are out of your mind. Right. But again, like then men are punished for saying things like, hey, I would prefer a woman that is like, like not fat. And it's like, oh, that's terrible. It's like, is it though? Because then you're telling me I have to make like, because I'm sure y'all seen the videos too, where like they ask women like what they expect their husband to make, and they'll say like, oh well, I mean, he has to make at least like, like $500,000, and you're like, do you understand? That's like literally a 0.001% of people in the United States. Like,
right. They're saying he's got to be like
that's more than
6'2". He's got to be
that's more than the president of the United States. Okay, like can we like have a reality check, right? Mm-hmm. And they're so disillusioned because I think
actually the president doesn't even make that much.
Yeah, he doesn't even make that much.
400,000.
Exactly, right. And so it's like,
yeah, we'll check his net worth. It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing, right? But it's just, but that's the thing I appreciate it for. But unfortunately, because Zach, to your point, like the Christian church in the United States just totally dropped the ball. Like, and that's one thing, because I grew up, in youth group and all this kind of stuff. And, I would go to the men's talks and be like, guys, you got to do this, you got to do that. But they never got into what does masculinity really mean, right? Mm-hmm. From that Christian perspective. And I think it's because they were afraid, right? They just wanted to take this approach of, well, Jesus was a really nice guy. Man. So you should be a nice guy, right? Just be a nice guy, right? And it's like, being nice isn't a virtue. There's nothing
nice and kind. Nice and kind are different.
Yeah, it's Jesus with the little lamb, right? Meek and mild, right? All this kind of stuff. Like, don't ruffle feathers, right? All this kind of stuff, right? And then it would also turn into, like, obviously, men struggle with pornography a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a real struggle, right? But they would use that as a way to say, you need to suppress all these things that you feel, everything you feel, basically everything it means to be everything about being a man. You must suppress it. It's all terrible. It's all evil, and that's the approach they would take instead of saying, look, this is who you are. This is the reality, right? Like instead of saying like, hey, like, yeah, I know you have these desires about women. It's okay to feel that way, right? It's okay to feel sexual desire. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's how you utilize it, right? It's using it in the proper context, right? Right. And it was things like that I think, like you said, like the church just swung and missed, right? And I think for a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who, again, grew up maybe in youth group or grew up in some sort of Christian environment, had a not a twisted, because I think that's putting it properly, but an improper or incomplete view of for guys' masculinity and their sexuality ultimately, right? Which affects people's marriages. It affects their relationships, right, with women, and we're suffering for it, right? You're seeing, like, again, these men that are in their 20s and 30s that are kind of just overgrown boys in a certain sense, right? Because they weren't taught, like, what is masculinity? Because masculinity is always, or as of the recent 20 or so years, it seems almost like a bad thing, right? Like a masculine man is not good, right? You need to suppress those things and get rid of those kind of things.
So there's two things I'll address. One is the fact of, like, the church kind of swinging and missing. And I do agree they dropped the ball, but I don't think they dropped the ball necessarily because they intended to, or they just suck or whatever. I think they dropped the ball because they were never designed for that. There's a book. Have you heard of Vodi Bakum?
I think so.
Okay, check him out when you get a chance. He wrote a book called Family Driven Faith. And in that book, he talks about how a lot of parents in, like, the 80s and 90s kind of had this idea that the church will teach my kids how to be a man of God or woman of God. Rather than the parents teaching these things.
That's a good
These
point.
lessons are, in the 1950s and, before whenever, they weren't teaching, kids didn't have to watch a video on what is masculinity. They were going out working with dad on the farm. They didn't have to be taught that.
It's first
they didn't have to be taught how do you get attention from a girl? They'd be taught that from their dad or their older brothers or their cousins or uncle. Sometimes an uncle may give some crazy advice, but
he would tell you like it was.
Yeah. But I think the issue that Mark Driscoll points out is that, during COVID, you had the lockdowns and stuff, and you had a generation of men sat at home, and now they're thrown back into the workforce, and their YouTube is, how do I talk to girls? How do I get married? How do I find a girl? How do I build a relationship? How do I do all this? And it's taken the place of what mom and dad are supposed to be doing.
Right.
And so, I think the church had an opportunity that they were never really built for, but they still had an opportunity because those guys like yourself were under that umbrella, and they could have taught these things. But they had to because the parents didn't. And I think really you bring it all the way back, the parents are dropping the ball. They're bringing it on the church is dropping the ball, and now they're watching Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate, and people like that, thinking that these caricatures
and
that they
TV
create,
and all this other just completely radicalized, channels.
Well, but the thing is this. So some of these people, man, especially in that red pill space, they're characters. They don't really act like that.
Yeah.
Like, I know people that know these people personally. They do not act like that. Like, I'm not going to, I don't want to call out names, but.
Well, call them out.
Let's go viral.
Let's see about, we're going to call them out right now.
We'll see what happens.
C-Love's like, forget it. We don't care about feelings, call them out, right?
Here's the thing. My friend, he made videos about he made a couple videos about modern women today. Made like $50,000 in a month off stuff like that. Made videos about, man, this is how you need to up your status stuff financially. No views. Well, not no views, but no real money.
A lot less, yeah.
Yeah, a lot less. And so he realized, okay, I can make money.
Algorithm, yeah.
Or I can try to help guys. Which one am I going to do? Now I can, and it's kind of like this. It's like, imagine you own a pharmaceutical company, right? You have a drug that you can give cancer patients and they feel like they are on top of the world, but it doesn't kill the cancer, doesn't get rid of it. You give them that drug, it makes them feel on top of the world, they feel so good, but they're still dying of cancer. And then eventually they die. Or you have a drug that they take and it tastes terrible. Makes them feel bad, but it's killing the cancer and it's making them better. Guess what? Unfortunately, that other drug that makes them feel good is going to fly off the shelves. People are going to pay top dollar for that. And then guess what? The pharmaceutical companies are going to say, we're selling that stuff. And then the guy that says, man, I want to cure cancer, starts selling this. And then he starts, the other pharmaceutical companies, can you believe he's selling you this stuff? It doesn't even taste good. Look at a lot of these red pill creators, not all, had great conversations with some on our page, but some are feeding young men the makes you feel on top of the world, makes you feel good. And then when somebody comes along and says, I'm giving you the stuff that's curing it, they say, oh no, that guy's blue pill. Oh, that guy's not standing up for men. He doesn't care. And I saw that happen to my friend.
He's a beta. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, and
okay.
It's like, dude, we lived this same situation. And now we got married. Now we have kids. We have the family. We have the things you were looking for. You know? And you're saying you're suppressed. You are like the feminist who really wants to get married, but she's like 300 pounds, and she's saying, "Oh well, it's the men's, chauvinistic worldview that's keeping me from getting married." And it's like, no, you just don't want to take the pill of going to the gym. And some of these guys are like, man, instead of really figuring out how could I have protected myself and maybe done something different to learn from this bad breakup that I had with this girl that cheated on me. What could I have done differently? Instead they want to spend the whole time, let me watch Fresh and Fit. Oh, this girl reminds me of Jessica, and then it's like, dude, I get it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but like, yeah, there are messed up women in the world. And a lot of it, and we'll get to that in a second, but it's like, dude, you've got to get out of your pit. You've got to get out of your pit. Like, you've got to get out of this dark place that you're in, and you've got to start making some changes. And then let's complain. But let's at least get to the point where you can get someone first. You're complaining and you can't even get any. Like, you didn't walk away from marriage. They're walking away from you. And so that's where I think it's like, I feel for the guys though. I get it. But YouTube has taken the place of where fathers were supposed to be.
Agreed.
Yep.
And that's where I think it's like, man, all right, look, take a week and watch how bad the women are. Realize how messed up the world has become and how Satan is pitching lies to women in our country and in our society. Look out for that, 100%. But what you can't do as a Christian is say, oh, well, I'm going to be one of the passport bros and I'm going to go knock up a chick in like, Cambodia and send her 5 shekels every month. And, like that. How realistic is that?
Literally,
you've never left your state.
Yeah.
You can't afford to leave your state. How are you going to go to freaking Cambodia? Come on.
That's their advice, though. It's better to just go overseas and get a girl, and then have your kid there, and then, like you said, just send your money over there, and then see the kid every 6 months,
right? And they're like, yeah, the kid they're giving advice to is like, he works at like Walmart. Like, what are you talking? He can't go to Cambodia. What are you talking about, bro? Like, what?
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm gonna say this: we are just as much against feminism as anyone else, as the red pill. We are so against it. We are not for it. We're against the blue pill fairy tale stuff. But I think the red pill does a good job diagnosing the problem, but they do a bad job giving the solution. Even though they claim it is a praxeology, we don't give solutions. They're giving solutions when guys come up with the idea of passport bros, and the solutions that the community has come up with are not good solutions. I'll say that. But they do a good job of diagnosing the problem.
Right.
And that's where I will give them props. And I think the church has better solutions if they diagnose the problem, but they haven't diagnosed the problem.
Right. And I think that's why so many guys are flocking to these different red pill sort of individuals, because like I said, they are diagnosing the problem. Whenever they say they're what they're saying, like, that's true. Right. Mm-hmm. That is true. Like, those things are absolutely true. Right. When it comes to those relationships, right, dealing with women, like, there's a whole lot of truth to that, right? And so I give them props for about pretty much like 90% of the things they say, right? But then, like you said, once we get to the application, right, of stuff, it's like, well, this really made a lot of sense, okay, right? Yeah, sure, would everybody love to be a top G? Of course, but are most people going to be? No, they're not. So, like, let's have some reality here, right? Reality is. Right, what you can do, but here's where, again, I think where we can kind of fill those gaps is like, you don't have to do those things to still get the things that you want, which I think, in all honesty, right, I think what anyone wants, right, is a healthy marriage, right, and to have children, right, because the joy and happiness that comes from those things is unmatched, right? Zach, like, this, right? You said your baby's 9 months old.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the moment your baby was born, I mean, I already know, right? I mean, it's like your brain, like, boop, like, it just, there's a cosmic shift in the universe for you in that moment, right? Every dad, right, knows that moment, right? I mean, so, and it was and again, I've said this before too, is like, and you pointed this out, like, with having our third child here this last year in March, right? Every single time I've had a child, my income has raised every single time, right? And that's what I've told. And again, like, I'm not telling you, like, you shouldn't have kids just to make more money. I mean, it may help you, but that's not the only reason you should do it, right?
Yeah, I don't think it works like that.
Yeah,
not automatically. No, so be careful out there, right? Don't be going in
just crank them out and be like, all right, I'm ready.
Yeah, don't be cranking them out left and right. Okay,
when's it coming?
Right. But I think
Yeah, and that's when what's it? The Fisher's Publisher House comes to your door with the check. It's like, up here they are right on time.
Oh,
yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I think it's like a direct deposit. It just goes straight to your account.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you have another kid? Yeah, here you go, right? But I think a lot of these things, because like you said, we're diagnosing the problem, but what we're lacking of understanding, and this is where I think the church, I think in this moment, can really come through, or just Christians in general can come through, is like pointing out what you're seeking is fulfillment of a purpose, right? You're lacking purpose in your life, right? That is what I just come back to every time whenever I hear these things. I'm like, these guys and these women are lacking purpose in their life. And that's because typically they don't have they have either very little sort of a faith belief, or they have none. And so they're trying to search for this, they're like, there's something, I can't put my finger on it. I mean, I make fun of Christians for their skydiving, but I can't figure out, there's something here I'm missing, right? That will complete my life, right? I have this, I all these kind of things, but there's something I'm missing. And the reality is, right, we are spiritual beings. We are there is a spiritual aspect to our physical bodies, even here on earth. And there is something to be said about respecting the institution of marriage, getting married, and ultimately having children, like C-Love, like you talked about earlier. Like you want to get married and you want to have kids, right? And it's not just because like you want to have. It's like there's something that it does to you, right, to do that. But then also it's a legacy thing, right? And I think this is every man, right? It's a legacy, right? My 3 kids are my legacy, right? And how they grow up as adults will say everything about me as a man, right?
Yep.
And that's what Christians can talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even on a secular level, you don't have to necessarily bring God into that to I think bring that point for these guys, right? A lot of young men that are confused, they're suffering. Again, a lot of them are suffering from addiction to pornography, right, and other things, right? It's you're trying to search for a purpose. Right? There's a whole down to a soul level that you're trying to fill with all this crap. And you're missing the biggest thing, right? You're missing this thing, and you're going to continue to search for it forever, right? Until you just come back to the source,
right?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And I think, I think that as Christians and as you guys are married, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's married
To each other, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need more of men like you 3 going out and telling people how beautiful marriage can be, and also the work that it requires to keep a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the woman's side, I know you guys had Carla on the show, right?
Yes.
And we also had Carla.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Carla.
He's a good advocate for letting women know marriage ain't about happiness. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh my God.
And just the real side of what a woman's involvement is in marriage. We need more of that, because one thing the red pill community is doing is they're gonna let you know, don't get married.
Yeah, that's all they'll say is don't get married.
Yeah, they're gonna push that. And we need people. We need men and women.
They're not gonna say that. They're gonna say, if you were to say that to them, they're gonna say, we're not saying that.
Well, they're gonna give you all the negatives. They're gonna give you all the negatives about marriage. We need more. We need more people speaking the positives and then the real side of marriage, right? We need more of that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, real red pill, they're pushing all the negatives. Oh, she's just gonna take all your money whenever you get divorced. Like, it's so negative,
right?
And it makes people not want to get married.
Right, and like you said, Zach, they won't outright say, "Oh, you shouldn't get married," but again, like
but everything they're alluding
like,
to,
they say everything about marriage is terrible.
Right.
I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but
there's
everything
no
about it is bad. Okay,
there's literally no benefits. You put yourself at a liability risk.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying don't do it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it, but
that's
nothing good will happen. Nothing good will happen. Yeah,
you walk down this trail. There's a high chance that lions, tigers, bears are going to be there, and they're going to attack you. But I'm not telling you which route to go.
You can go. Yeah, you should. It's all right.
You can go. I mean, it's your call.
I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying, and I'm just saying the facts. And it's like,
yeah,
you're not sharing all the facts.
Yeah, it's like playing football, right? Like, there's so many good qualities that can come from playing sports and playing like football, for example. But if you're just telling somebody, oh, you're going to go out there and tear your ACL, like you're going to get injured, you might die on the field, like anything, like you might get a concussion, brain damage, like just tell them all that bad stuff is like, why would I want to play football, right?
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
You should go. You can go play football. I'm not saying don't play football. I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying, like this can happen.
Yeah, but jokes aside, you can make that argument about everything in life. You could be
everything.
You could be scared to go outside of your house because you may get hit by a bus. I mean, like you've got to at some point live your life and put that aside. But the problem is when nobody's hearing any other input and they're only getting the "don't do this." To your point, I mean. There needs to be more people who get out there and they preach the positive of marriage and matrimony and raising a good traditional family and with strong values. But the problem is, unfortunately, it's an uphill battle because that movement's kind of being censored. And
right. And on the women's side, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, on top of that, it's more like this, right? You've got to, because it's all about the algorithm and all that stuff. You take a guy who just got injured playing football. And then you show him videos about how football is a waste of time. You're going to get injured. And he's like, yeah, I got injured.
He's like,
these guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
He's right. It's just facts. It's facts.
And they feel like
facts
at that point. Yeah.
Because it's like, this happened to me, so it's true. And what they're not sharing. And the odd thing about it is it's like, a lot of these people are married, though. It's like a guy in the NFL making $400K being like, guys, look, the NFL sucks. I mean, football sucks. I mean, while he's sitting in his mansion and everything, you know, and that's why I would kind of be like, you know, who knows? The thing, I'll say that Rolo, it's kind of like a Voldemort type thing. Like you say his name, he makes a video about you, and you're like, how did he even know I was around? You know, that I say who I was. But anyway,
well, now we're gonna have a video made about us. I'm not.
Look. Here's the thing. I don't know him. I know he doesn't like Hafiz that much. From what I'm, at least, it doesn't seem like he likes Hafiz very much. But we have some friends that actually are friends with him. So maybe he's a cool guy. I don't know. But you know, you've got somebody like that who will say all these, like, I'm just giving guys the facts. I'm just giving them the facts. And then, you know, when you question, say, well, you're married and you're probably about to go have sex with your wife right now, you know, then, you know, and these other guys are stuck just with the laptop, you know, and you're telling them not to give, well, you're not telling them, you're telling them all the risks, terrible risks. See you guys later. I'm going to go have sex with my wife. You know, like it's kind of, it's kind of like
it's working for me, but it's definitely not going to work for you.
Yeah,
all right?
but then he'll say, well, you know, I'm an exception to the rule, you know, and it's like, okay, you know, give me the exception too. Tell me the exception. And here's the crazy thing. A lot of, I mean, I don't know about you, but you know, I come from a parents that are together, and you know, I don't know what his background is. It's like, well, my parents' marriage is working. You know, like, you're not saying anyone's perfect. People can find flaws and everything, but it's like,
well, I mean, the idea that all sin and fall short of glory of God, right? It's just reality. You know what I mean?
Right. But it's like there's a caricature of marriage that I don't think is completely accurate. Mm-hmm. I do think that, like I said, there is a problem with. I do think that Satan has used the same strategy that he used in the garden, which is go after Eve.
Yes.
Go after the women of feminism and all this other kind of stuff. Go after them. Get them to believe these things. In every sitcom, there's a dude. The husband is like the buffoon. Yes. The wife is witty. And then the kid and the pet dog save the day, you know? And so it's kind of, I get that the world is brainwashing women into this. I get it. That doesn't mean you cannot win.
Right.
And if as a Christian too, and I think he says he's a Christian, as a Christian, like, there is no other way to get married. I mean, to have children outside of marriage. And maybe he'll say, oh, well, you know, don't get married in the institution or whatever. Get married this other weird way. It's like, okay, you're not married by law. You still, and I would even say you probably have a less chance of keeping your kids if your wife decides to just do you dirty, like, you know, they say she's gonna do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, so I don't know, man. I think, like I said, I think they do a good job diagnosing like 80 to 90% of the problem. I just don't think that the solutions that the red pill community, the commenters, the passport bros, the MGTOW doomers or whatever, I don't think that these people came up with the proper solution. And I think that it's a little irresponsible of the, you know, the heads of the red pill space or whatever to just kind of say, I see this going on and this is going to lead these guys to a bad place, but I'm not going to address it. And maybe they do, and I just don't see those videos because they don't pop on the algorithm. But that's my opinion. I think they should at least say, hey, look, this is what I did. This is what I'm doing. May not work for you, but I'm giving you some sort of option. Because these guys are looking for solutions. They're not looking to just vent. Mm-hmm. They need solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, and that's a guy, right? Guys are solution oriented, right? They want to, like, I have a problem, I need a solution, give me a solution. And I mean, you know, the first person, or at least maybe not necessarily first, but the best solution they hear is like, okay, there it is. I find it, you know, I just move on, you know. Mm-hmm.
The simplest solution, probably.
Yes. Well, yeah, simplest solution.
Yeah.
Is probably more of it. Yeah. And I think, and there is also truth that misery loves company, right? Like you said, there's a lot of guys that had a bad situation with a girl, all this kind of stuff. So, again, misery loves company. So they're going to come up with wacky solution. Again, like Passport Bros. Like, oh yeah, they're going to break up with me and cheat on me. Well, I'm going to go, like I said, I'm going to go find a girl in wherever, right?
Taiwan or something.
Yeah, Taiwan, right? And I won't have to worry about it now. So take that, Jessica. It's like, well, Jessica doesn't care.
Right,
So,
right.
Good one, bro.
You're right. Misery loves company. And I remember there was a time where I was dating a girl, and it was kind of like at those beginning stages,
Yeah.
And I had actually bought her flowers, right? And then soon after that, I found out like she wanted to kind of stop talking, and she was messing with some other guy. And so that's when I kind of became like, well, I became red pilled before that, but I became extra kind of red pilled, right?
He took an extra red pill after that.
Yeah, I took like another one. I was like, nah, the first one didn't work. It wore off, right?
I need another dose.
Right, I need another dose. So I got online, and I found this guy, and the first thing he says is, "You're probably here because you bought her flowers, aren't you?" And I'm just like, yeah, I am. He's like, never. And I mean, never buy a girl flowers. And here's why. You know what I mean? And from there, you just go down the red pill rabbit hole.
Oh, man. I remember.
See, that's what's bad, right? Because they say that kind of stuff. And again, 1 out of every 10 guys watches the video. They're like, I did. Everything this guy says is 100% true, no 100%. Matter what. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but never mind the fact
he knows.
Never mind the fact the title was, "I bought a woman flowers, now what?"
Exactly.
It's like one of those cryptic, like back alley fortune tellers who's just like kind of reading your signals,
Exactly.
You're here because you need something. You're like, how? No way.
Yeah, it's like, how'd you know? But I typed it in. It's like.
You guys should chop up that piece and then make it something like, don't buy your next girl flowers. This is why, or something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Use a thumbnail where it shows a picture of a guy like here giving flowers, and she's like walking away with some swole, jack dude.
Yeah,
she's like,
some swole Sigma. She's walking away with Andrew Tate. Yeah, this is your girl.
Top G. Yeah, and so.
But no, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever bought a girl flowers since.
I went through.
You haven't found the right girl, right? That's what it is.
The right girl. I haven't found the right girl.
That's what it is.
That's right.
When I was at college with him and him and Chris King, I was in like a red pill space where literally like every girl that one of them would talk to, or even I would kind of talk to, is like, nah, she's got issues. And I would call it out. You remember, I was like doing the red pill stuff before I knew what it was. Maybe there was a thing, but I'd gone through that too because I had experienced the worst. And I was like, guys, you don't know what's out there, and sometimes there is a naivety of some guys that are like, they haven't really been through a lot. We were talking about this the other day. We know people that haven't really been through that heartache and stuff. And so they still have this like kind of blue pilled view of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, man, are they going to get hurt? And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I do think that, I just think that the the red pill kind of it feeds that hurt that someone experienced, and it's an emotional reaction to something. You don't see many people who have never been turned down or never been dumped or whatever go to that.
Yeah,
you don't see guys in good relationships
right
there.
But I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, if I don't agree with everything Fresh and Fit says, but sometimes I go and I watch it. It kind of feels good watching Myron set a girl straight, because they kind of go, like, it kind of feels good a little bit because they're delusional. Some of those women that they have on that show are like delusional, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, they find one on the streets of Miami, so there's plenty of delusional women there.
right. They're not finding like, accountants. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
no, they're finding accountants, but they're finding accountants that, maybe is like a single mom and 40 years old and wants a guy that's like in his peak
A top
time
G.
making like, $300,000 a year.
It's like, well, listen, lady, you ain't gonna get that.
Yeah, and so like I said, I think there's truth. There's
Right.
truth.
Yeah. I mean, like those delusions. Yeah, it's important for the delusion to be for it to be shattered, right? Like, like again, is it nice to watch them like own a feminist? Like, yeah, it's funny. But I think there is a greater point to it, which is like it's showing you that there is this widespread idea as far as what the average woman like believes she deserves, and it shows that a lot of times that they are out of touch with reality. Right. And it's not because women are stupid. It's because women have been fed a lie continuously. Right.
And they believe it.
And they believe. Well, why wouldn't you? Right. I mean, it's about, it's saying your stuff don't stink. You know what I'm saying? Right. I mean, it's saying like everything you do is perfect. Right. And not saying that you are that anything you do is wrong. Right. Because I mean,
and unfortunately, it's crept into the church.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah.
Pastor Mark Driscoll addresses this, and he mentions how most women are comfortable in a masculine space, but most men aren't comfortable in a feminine space.
No,
like women are comfortable in a feminine space and in a masculine place, but most men aren't comfortable in a feminine space. And so he mentioned, I think it was like World War II, one of the major wars the U.S. was in. A lot of the men went off to war. Right. And then the people left to run the local church. You've got this retired old pastor that's more like a grandpa, kind of giving up, he's not as high sprung as he used to be. And he gives, a nice little message here and there. And then they're like, oh, we need someone for the music. And then he's got his grandson that is, emotionally confused and stuff, leading the worship and didn't go off to war. And then the guys come back and they're like, in church, they're like, well, I'm not listening to that guy. And I can't hit those keys that this, guy with the hipster guy with the glasses and the weird haircut is hitting. Unless I get kicked in the nuts or something, I can't hit those notes. I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so it was made. Churches kind of started becoming more feminine oriented. A lot of the music started becoming more feminine. Like I really, unless someone really breaks it down in a way that makes sense to me, I can't stand this one verse in one song where it's the. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, I don't know if you guys have heard that contemporary
Crowder song. Yeah.
And then there's a part where there's a verse that says, heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss. And I was like, what? Sloppy wet kiss? And it's like, God, I love the way you hold me. I love the way you hug me. I love the way you do everything with me. And it's like,
this is
man,
weird.
God's not your boyfriend.
Yeah, this is really weird.
It's getting weird. It's like, God, come into me and fill me. And you're like, what?
What?
I don't want that. It's like, I want the mighty fortress is our God, like that kind of stuff.
Well, what's really funny, real quick though, what's funny about the How He Loves Us song, the first time I ever heard it, the person said unforeseen kiss. I'm like, okay. So like that's the way I first heard it, and then like a year later, I heard the sloppy wet kiss. And it was like I was at a worship session. I legit opened my eyes. I'm like, what did you just say? I looked around at my friend. I'm like, and they also were like, wait, what? Like I don't remember that being the lyric. Like,
that's the original version. They actually changed. They were actually forced to. I don't know if they were forced, but it's kind of like that was the edited radio version, you know?
Well, because it's because the idea of a sloppy white kiss and a worship song seems very uncomfortable.
Sloppy, you're picturing tongue and everything. It's too romantic. It's too romantic.
It's very, it's very odd. It's very odd.
The bride of Christ.
That's weird though.
But I'm not his bride. You know, like, and it's a lot of women are okay singing like that. Like, oh, I'd love if he could just fill me up. You know, but I'm like, what? Like, so
wait a minute.
Like
there's 4 guys on this.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, C-Love's like, wait, what?
Exactly.
What's
That's
happening?
what I'm saying. When it's like, God, I surrender and I'm just have your way with me. I'm kind of like,
you cannot have your way with me, sir.
I'm like, yeah, well, God, I want to be your servant, so I want to do what you want, but I don't know if that's what you want. You know? So, you know, it's gotten very feminized, and a lot of men kind of walking away. And then the majority of the parishioners are women. And so, you know, pastor's getting up there and he sees like Big Shirley in the front, and she's wondering, why can't I not get a husband? He's going to say, well,
God hasn't he hasn't revealed him to you yet.
You're right. He hasn't revealed him to you yet. You don't need to do anything. You know,
just pray more, Shirley. Just pray, or Shelly, whatever. Yeah, just pray more.
And then the guys, you know, he's like, you know, let me come down hard on the guys. We're going to read Ephesians 5. Wives, submit to your husbands. Let me give 20, you know, bullet points of what submission is not. It's not this, 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 it's not this. Okay, husbands, love your wife like Christ loved the church, and he died for the church. So that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's like he died.
We don't need an explanation for that. Right, you did it. You know, but for the women, it's like, well, there's all this is what it doesn't mean.
Yeah, you have to submit, but hold on, right? Hold on. We're gonna preface what that means. Don't worry, ladies.
It's like,
don't worry.
Why don't we preface died on the, you know, dying for the church? Why don't we preface that? Oh, he meant it literally. I think he meant this literally too.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so that's where I think a lot of the feminism has crept into the church.
Yes.
And when you start getting into, and this is just my opinion, it's not a hill I'm going to die on, or I'm going to call someone a heretic if they go to a church like this or something like that. But, you know, even when we talk about like women pastors and stuff, man, like, I think it's pretty black and white in the Bible. And, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, that she can't be that she's not a believer and stuff. I just think that that's not the efficient way that God called the church to run. And, you know, I think that we're seeing a lot of these problems in the churches because we are not doing it his way, and we are allowing this worldly stuff to creep in. And it's you know, it's not good. And it's like I said, it's gotten into the church, and a lot of women and men are frustrated because they're like, I'm doing the church's advice and I'm not getting a husband. And I think that, or a wife. And I think that the church, like I said earlier, should be the beacon of truth and light. And that's where I think, instead of relying on a red pill Randy to kind of like expose the truth of women's nature,